My DGens, to be honest, everyone's like, yo, Jufufu's so easy to play. She's just like Trigger. And I'm like, yo, what the frick you talking about, man? Because to be honest, I thought she was harder to figure out than Yixuan, so maybe I was dropped as a child. But regardless, today I am bringing you the juice, so let's talk Jufufu. Alright, so let's start off with the basic mechanics and mindset. And Jufufu, she has a pet, which is this robotic mechanism right there. And the awesome thing about this pet is that if you stand idle long enough, he's going to come and get scritchies from our Jufufu. And holy heck, our boy is in utter bliss. But when he's not getting scratches, he is actually going ahead and attacking our enemy once every 4 seconds. And every time our pet attacks, so come on boy, go get him, we get some of this gauge. And then so homeboy is going to attack again. You can see our gauge is full. And so when this gauge is 50% and above, so above this line over here, and we switch out of Jufufu, so I'm going to switch out, our boy is going to go boom, and then you can see there is a massive popcorn bomb. That said though, this bomb attack right there, this is the main source of her days. And so this is what we want her contribution to the team to be. And so that brings me to probably the first and most important point of Jufufu. And it's that this bomb thing right here, it is actually cancelable. And just to be clear, we don't want to cancel it. All right, and so the bomb is about to proc, and I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to cancel the bomb just like that. Which is not good, right? Like we want that bomb to go off. We want those popcorns to be smacking Abdullahan. And on the other hand, if you do a defensive assist, so when the enemy does a yellow flash and you switch Jufufu in, that also actually cancels the big bomb as well. And the reason is because the quick assists and the defensive assists, these two attacks takes priorities over every other attack. I'm sure if you've been playing for a while, you'll have noticed this. And look, the defensive assist is decent, but the better move is to actually just dodge with your active character and do something else so that Jufufu can do her business and flood the enemy with a whole bunch of popcorn and days. So what this means for you though is that you need to be monitoring her gauge while she's off field. And if you do notice that she is going to do the bomb, then you need to remember to let her finish before you take any quick assists or defensive assists. And before we move on, I do want to say that the stun chain attack also interrupts the bomb. But at that point, the enemy is like already stunned. So you can take the chain attack, considering it does do pretty good damage if you so wish. You can, of course, also chain cancel. All right, and so the second piece of tech is actually really interesting. And it's the pet reset dash attack. And so homeboy only attacks other homeboy once every 4 seconds. But what you can do is you can do dash attack hold and then do the spinning thing, and you can see it immediately procs. It forces our pet to immediately attack after that combo. So I'm going to do it again. It is dodge into hold attack and then let go. Dodge, hold, attack, and then let go the moment you see her start riding the mount. And then bada bing, bada boom, homeboy is going to attack immediately after. And to be clear, that thing does actually charge your gauge. So let me come back into Jufufu. Homeboy attacked, and then I'm going to do the spin thing. He's going to attack again. You can see gauge build up pretty fast. Now, some people will say that you can loop this, and it is true, you can loop this. So I'm going to go do that, let it go, make sure he's attacking, and then just kind of like loop it back and forth, and you can see my gauge is actually going really fast. And of course, you need to make sure that the animation of him hitting the enemy has already completed before you start your next loop. So I'm just going to do a couple of loops, and you can see the timing, it's not too bad. If you just practice it a little bit, I'm sure you'll get it in like 3 minutes. Boom. In my opinion, this loop is not that useful except for in one specific use case. It's when you're really trying to push the enemy into stun, like maybe they're at 80% days or something, 20 seconds left in Deadly Assault, so you want to get one more stun combo in. And so I would do the loop until the gauge hits 50% or above, switch out, and then watch her bomb the enemy, and that should hopefully get you that last stun window. That said though, again, probably the only time I would actually use this tech. Without the loop, so if we just kind of just do this one thing here, I've actually found a lot of utility in it. And where I found it most useful is anytime I'm about to switch out of Jufufu, I just do the tech to switch out. So boom, and then I switch out and then go do other things. So maybe I'll do it again, boom, and then go back into my Yixuan. And this is just a really good habit because pulling this off over 3 minutes for Deadly Assault, it could get you that extra stun, especially if you have been playing inoptimally. Or maybe in Shiyu Defense, it gets you the stun just that little bit earlier for a faster clear. Alright, and so she has another mechanic, and it's this fire Beyblade thing. So I'm just going to push her into the fire state, so she is burning. And the reason that she's burning is because she has these 3 stacks over here. These 3 stacks are essentially saying after she does her popcorn bomb, she's going to go into fire Beyblade mode. So I'm just going to switch out, and we're just going to watch her. And so firstly, it should be the massive popcorn bomb, and then she's going to do it again, and then she's just going to go fire Beyblade, and that's really kind of it. Now, in terms of tech, there really isn't too much that you can do with this, like look at her go. But just coming back into Jufufu, the way that you do get those stacks to trigger the fire Beyblade is to either use your EX skill, or your ultimate, or defensive assists. 3 from EX skill, as you can see right there. And then I'm going to use my ultimate, which is going to give us another 6, so a total of 9. Bada bing, bada boom, Jufufu going ham, and we've got 9 stacks there. And then lastly, we've got the defensive assist, in which you have to take that follow-up attack. If you don't, then you're not going to get that extra point. So I'm going to show you again. He's going to attack me. I'm going to use defensive assist, but you're only going to see the stack come up after you use the follow-up. So boom, no stack, and then follow-up attack, and then you get the stack. So do not forget to use that follow-up attack. So yeah, again, not really much tech there. She just does her Beyblade. She just does a lot of damage, a lot of days. That's really it. And then in terms of her EX skill, so you can see we do have a lot of gauge. Generally speaking, I would say only use it when your other gauge, this gauge over here, is under 50%. So it's not glowing orange. And so in this case, I would just freaking swap out and burn that gauge over there. So you can see we've got popcorn. I'm just going to do my shit with Yixuan. And then when Jufufu finally has no gauge, I'm just going to swap back in EX, and then I'm just going to swap cancel and go back and keep going. So this makes sure that you don't overcap. And so let's do that again. I see Jufufu's gauge is really low. I do see that she has EX, and so I am going to then swap into her, and then just swap back, swap cancel out of it. And she is just going to do crazy shit. All right, and so the next thing I wanted to talk about is something that is specific to Yixuan if you're playing Jufufu. And it's this extra cap over here. So maximum decibels for all characters in the squad increases by 1000. But on top of that, when attack or rupture character uses an ultimate, that character gains 300 decibels. And the implication that this has for Yixuan specifically is you can see I have 4000 decibels over here. Now, what I will tell you is that Yixuan's 2 ultimates count. So that means that if she is able to pull off both of her ultimates, she will get a 600 point refund. Now, in this specific scenario, if you have 4000 points and you do have both our ults charged up, so we have the ult from this bar over here and the ult down here, the ultimate from Yixuan's gauge is the one that is going to go first. However, since we are at 4000 decibels already, we're not going to get a 300 point refund. And so what that means is that you should never let this chain attack go above like really 3700 unless you really have a plan for it. And so 4000 cap, I'm going to go ahead and use the ultimate, and you can see I didn't get any refunds. I'm going to then use the other ultimate, and it is going to take me down to 1000 decibels plus 300 for the refund. And then I'm going to prove to you now that our gauge ultimate, this one over here, is going to give us 300 points. So this is our first ultimate. We've gone to 2.8k up from 2.5. And so what I'm trying to say is that you should try to use your ultimate below 3700. Pretty much never exceed 3700 unless of course you have a plan like stun windows or something like that. All right, and so the last thing I wanted to cover is the core passive, and the TLDR is don't even worry about it because its uptime is pretty much 100%. Every time Jufufu does the popcorn bomb, she gives everyone a whole bunch of buffs. Now, there is one thing that I'm going to point out that is going to be important for later, and it's this one over here. She gives a crit damage buff to everyone. However, this crit damage buff scales for every 100 attack further than 2800, it goes up by 5%. So we'll talk about that very soon. Because now it's time to talk about her gears. Holy heck. So that passive we were talking about before, 2800, goes up to 30%. It means that you need 3400 attack to max out this buff. My take on this, don't freaking sweat it. So in terms of priority, I'm going to come back to base stats. What we're looking for is 50% crit rate, as close to 50% as possible. So what I'm saying is that try not to go too far off. And the reason is because every point of crit rate could be attack instead. And every time you get more attack and cross those thresholds, you get more crit damage for the rest of your team. Now, I would actually disagree with the priorities here. I reckon crit damage, like you freaking totally ignore, and you actually still do build impact, especially for A rank W engine users like myself. So to summarize, crit rate as close to 50% as possible, attack as high as possible, and then impact, not crit damage. And so to pull that off, what we have is the 4-piece Tiger set, King of the Summit. This guy is the reason for the 50% crit rate because it gives our team extra crit damage if we hit that 50% crit rate threshold. And as for the 2-piece set, any attack set or crit rate. And so what I'm saying for the 2-piece set is either Hormone Punk or the Astra set or the Woodpecker Electro. So you can do a combination of these as long as you hit what we're looking for. Again, 50% crit rate and as much attack as possible. Disc 4, we're looking for attack. Disc 5, attack as well. And then disc 6, impact. And so let me justify the impact decision a little bit more because our fossil is also going to be giving us impact. And it's that at the end of the day, our girl Jufufu is a stunner, and stunning is always going to be dependent on these days multipliers over here. And these days multipliers are multiplied off of the impact stat. And so even though MiHoYoverse doesn't think it's a priority, it certainly to me absolutely is a priority. Pushing enemies into stun absolutely is still super important. Think of Yixuan and the move that she has that does like extra 20% or 40% damage whilst the enemy is in stun. All right, and so here is the important part. I'm gonna come back over to this guy over here. And remember that this crit damage buff is only given at intervals of 100 attack. And so what that means is, for example, my Jufufu looks like this, 3188. That is 88 wasted attack. I need to pump that either into crit rate or crit damage or impact. And so this is just an example, but I would look for another disc that does have extra attack and extra crit rate, just like this one right here. Holy heck. And so what I'm trying to say here is that there is an optimization to be made. You want this number to be as close to the hundreds as possible, like down to the 0. You don't want this number to end in 80 or 90, like you don't want 3180 or 3190 or 3188. You want it at 3100. You want it to end in the zeros because those stats could be pumped elsewhere, either into crit rate or crit damage. That said though, my degens, that's all I have for Jufufu today. So let me know how you guys are finding her. Did you pull for her? Are you guys having fun? Did I miss any tech? Let us know down in the comments below. I'm sure everyone would appreciate it. I definitely would. And if this video did help, please do consider sharing it. Otherwise, this is the end. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.